Welcome back. You're watching To The Point, and we're discussing the catastrophe in Chennai. Mr. Rathore, let's start with the electricity situation. Piyush Goyal, the power minister, has announced that he's working to restore power as quickly as possible. But with heavy rain predicted for 72 hours and more rain for the rest of the week thereafter, and with much of the city flooded, and who knows, the floods could get worse when reservoirs start releasing water, is it wise to restore power to such homes quickly? What's your advice to the government on that critical point?
We need to be prudent on restoring the power supply because it's a very sensitive issue, and it might create more harm than benefit. So we need to exercise caution on that. And one thing which I would like to respond
have you formally given that advice to the government? I know you've been meeting the cabinet secretary in Delhi. Have you formally given this advice?
Yes, we have been discussing all these issues, and all aspects related to surface transportation, aviation, health, electricity, mobile restoration.
But you've given specifically advice that they need to be prudent about restoring power. They mustn't do it hastily. You've said that, have you?
Yes. Power Ministry themselves know about it more than me. Our job is to give that rainfall is likely to continue.
Mukund Padmanabhan, are people, sorry, I beg your pardon, I'll put that to T.S. Sudhir because he was talking about power a moment ago. T.S. Sudhir, are people in Chennai prepared to accept that, in fact, power could take a long time to be restored? Not just for the reasons of prudence, but also because I'm told the very system of jugaad on which our power networks are established can't be put up and running overnight.
Absolutely. They do realize that it's going to take a long time, especially if it's going to rain for another week. They also realize the fact that it is going to be pretty dangerous given the fact that electrocution has been taking place in many parts of Chennai, also from other rural areas. So that is going to be another factor which the Tamil Nadu Electricity Board will have to factor. And also to look at some of the rural areas where the situation is in fact much worse than what it is in Chennai at the moment. Too much of attention is focused on Chennai at the moment. But yes, restoration of electricity has to be a priority. But again, it has to be done keeping in mind the safety aspect.
Now, Mr. Shashidhar Reddy, the second big challenge is to ensure that there is not disease, there is not infection. Some is bound to happen when a city is so badly flooded the way this has been, and the floods have been happening in a building up situation for the last 3 weeks. But what are the critical steps now needed to prevent major infection disease and to prevent epidemics? Can you spell out the 2-3 critical steps that must be taken?
Well, I think we need to watch out. Of course, water being such a critical thing now, all waterborne diseases are something that we need to be watching out for. Then when we look back to what happened in Mumbai in 2005, there were cases of leptospirosis, which usually happens whenever we have flooding in the city areas because it is spread by rat urine, and then this is in plenty in urban areas. So this is also something we need to be prepared for. And then, you know, the general sanitation, when garbage piles up and it gets wet, you know, the stink that comes out, and all these can lead to infection. So I think as soon as the water recedes, we need to be prepared to get all the garbage out on a war footing.
But can I interrupt? So that, the water could take a long time to recede because the city is flooded, and as Prakash Javadekar pointed out, one of the problems is the water is not flowing into the sea as they would have hoped it would. So what can the administration start doing now as a way of preventing disease, infection and epidemic? Are there concrete steps now?
No, I think the maximum focus should be on trying to reach out safe water to people. Okay. Because that is something which is going to be extremely essential. So safe water has to be reached out, and then the regular medications, you know, the kind of infectious diseases that can be caused, we should be in a position to reach out medicines to people in need of such things. And then so medical teams should be able to scan into the areas, and people moved into safer places have to be very closely monitored in the shelters and where
very quickly on that critical question, how essential would be the services of the Army Medical Corps and the associate medical corps from the Air Force and Navy? Do you see them playing a critical role in the weeks ahead?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But you know, the government of India also, in the past, we've seen, you know, a lot of teams are sent from Delhi, from all over, you know, wherever they're required from. I think that should not be a problem. Reaching out medical, you know, specialists to reach out is not a problem. And I think we should be able to handle it quite well.
Mukund Padmanabhan, you're on the spot, living through the catastrophe that we keep describing and we're trying to analyze the different elements of. What is it like for a family in Chennai today simply to get clean drinking water? How difficult is it? I take it you can't just turn the tap on and drink from what you're getting with some assurance.
You know, for some of us, it's, you know, who can afford it, it's a matter of, you know, trying to get bottled water, which I've been doing, for instance, for the past few days. I think the issue really is with, you know, has to do with the bulk of people. I mean, I just want to go back to something you said about medicines and so on. I think the first task is really rescue. There are a lot of people trapped. There are a lot of people who can't get out of their homes. They're probably running low on water. They're probably running low on food. So I think this is the first thing that we need to deal with. And as you've rightly pointed out, I think the aftermath of this is something that, you know, we need to address soon afterwards, which is this, you know, these range of diseases that are going to break out. Because we've been talking about water. The fact is that in large parts of the city is actually, you know, under sewage. Sewage mixed with, you know, in stormwater drains, they're coming out of there, and it's really very, very filthy all around. And there is going to be an epidemic, and we'll have to deal with it sooner or later.
Do you have any idea, or does the administration have any idea of the number of people who could be marooned in their houses, running short of water, running short of food, and also at the same time cut off by the floods?
I don't think so. I think thanks to a lot of you know, social media activity, crowdsourcing activity, for instance, we have a map created by somebody who tells us which parts of the city are really flooded. So we've had initiatives like that which, you know, give us some kind of picture. But we have absolutely no idea how many people are actually stranded. We know the areas that they're in, but we just don't have access to them. So I think, you know, I think this is a disaster that we still know very little about.
In other words,
I think the real dimensions of it, yeah.
In other words, this is not just a disaster and a catastrophe, as I keep saying, but a lot of it is still in the dark, and we don't know the full dimension of the horror that's unfolding.
Yes, a lot of it is still in the making, and that's what's really worrying. Yeah.
When I invited you, Mr. Subramaniam, to join us, because I was particularly keen to have your expertise as a former cabinet secretary, you said to me that Chennai is probably a warning to the rest of India. We've talked about Chennai for 35 minutes. I think it's only fair that the audience should try and understand from you why you think Chennai is a warning for the rest of India.
For me, current Chennai is, in a sense, a repeat of what happened to Uttarakhand 3 years back, in a different way. In Chennai, I know Chennai fairly well, and in the IT corridor area, in that lake is there, huge marshy areas are there. 20 years back, the conventional wisdom was, don't interfere with this area. This is marshy area, this is not for construction. And this modern technology has come. 30, 40, 50, 100,000 universities, schools, IT buildings have come now. What is the crux of the problem here? The crux of the problem is, you've got to see there, it's a natural drainage. You are not letting the water flow. Now the water there is higher than sea level, and you're not able to flow. The sea is coming because your lake, so even if the rain stops tomorrow, the point I'm trying to make here is that we need buildings, we need development, but we need great caution. Somebody has failed there in that area. We have to find out why the Pollution Control Board, why the Environment Ministry authorities allowed buildings. Why did they? As a layman, I knew 20 years back this is going to happen. So the real reason is all rivers are flooded, all lakes are gone, they've been encroached upon, all the nalas, etc., streams, etc., leading up to the largest streams are all blocked, and the drainage is choked. And therefore, this is not a Chennai problem. It so happened that the rains have come there. It could happen in Kochi tomorrow, in Trivandrum somewhere else, it could happen in Kolkata day after tomorrow. The same kind of a syndrome. I think much like the disaster in Delhi, we are not looking at the environment disaster here of the skies, of the pollution. These are all things, I don't see anybody in India thinking about these things. These are not today, tomorrow, these are next 10 years issues.
Mr. Shashidhar Reddy, do you accept the very sobering point being made by Mr. Subramaniam, a former cabinet secretary, that Chennai ought to be an eye-opening because what's happening in Chennai could easily happen elsewhere in India? In other words, the way we go about our town planning is to invite disasters, and all we now have is the option of waiting to see when it will happen and where.
Yes, certainly. I think we are now dealing with about 350 millimeters of rainfall on a single day, and about 880 to 900 millimeters since 15th of November. But you go back to 2005 July in Mumbai, it was 945 millimeters on a single day. That could happen. If it could happen in Mumbai, it can happen. It can happen anywhere. So if we have this kind of rainfall, extreme weather events are more likely. This is what experts tell us. The IPCC, everybody is talking about it. And then the way we have in areas which are without. As Mr. Subramanian just pointed out, the south of Mumbai, south of Chennai, marshy lands, land use planning is going to be extremely critical. So I think everybody has to start looking at it. And I would like to just mention
very quickly, because I'm out of time.
What happened in Mumbai for the first time? Yeah, we came out. The NDMA has come out with national guidelines on management of urban flooding for the first time, looking at all aspects of what causes urban
absolutely,
floods.
and those guidelines need to be adhered to, they need to be studied, they need to be observed. I take a point. But I don't want to end on the downside by saying that Chennai is a disaster that could replicate itself elsewhere, although undoubtedly it may well be. But there's one very positive outcome, and I want to put that to you, Sudhir. To my delight, the DMK came out in strong support of the AIA-DMK government. They've issued a statement from Mr. Karunanidhi say that he stands foursquare with his rival Jayalalitha today. That is a heartening response from an opposition, because usually in India, oppositions look for such crises to play politics instead. Would you accept my point? This is a heartening response from the DMK. A quick answer, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very positive, especially when it comes just about 5 months before Tamil Nadu is to go to the assembly elections. One would have probably expected DMK as the principal opposition party to go hammer and tongs at the kind of skewed development policies adopted by this AIDMK regime. It would have given an opportunity to score brownie points, but Karunanidhi and his son Stalin not choosing to do so. They have decided that they are going to stay with the government, support the government in its endeavor to provide relief measures. So in that sense, probably for the first time, we are seeing some kind of positive vibes between the DMK and the AIDMK in Tamil Nadu, and that's definitely a very heartening thing that we have seen amidst all this gloom in Tamil Nadu.
There we're going to have to end this particular show. It's been a sobering show, a discussion that's highlighted the problems and the grim conclusion that things will get a lot worse in Chennai before it gets better. But there is a small, if you can call it, silver lining on the very hard, dark, ominous clouds hanging over that city. The fact that the opposition is not playing politics, but is standing foursquare with the government. That is perhaps a lesson to all politicians in India. At a moment of crisis, join hands, don't make capital out of it. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and my best wishes to the people of Chennai. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Goodbye, good night.
Evacuation is underway at the BBC's new broadcasting house and a number of other London offices due to a suspicious vehicle. We're also being told of reports of hundreds of people